Steve, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as you're guiding parents through this process, right? Once they've determined what that net cost is, maybe if they've subtracted all of the costs that they can, the health insurance or whatever, what other fees that they, cost savings they can find. How do you guide them next? What are their options in terms of making ends meet to cover college costs?
Sure. I think sometimes with families, they get to the end and they're like, they see a number, whether that's 5,000 or 30,000, that can feel like a lot to that family. And I really encourage them to kind of think about it in a few different buckets and I think sometimes they think they have to solve it all in one bucket, but really you want to try to break it up as much as possible. And there might be nothing in some of those buckets, but it's worth it to think, okay, is it possible for the student to win some outside scholarships, from local foundations, something like that? Are they going to win $30,000? No, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. I also say, is it possible for the student to save $1,000 from working over summer before starting? Does the family have any one-time sources like a 529 where they have funding set aside for college? Fourth, I would say almost every college is going to offer some sort of a payment plan. And then, okay, after looking at those 4, and again, there might not be money in all 4, but just like thinking about those 4 things, after that, are there additional loans that the family wants to pursue at the end? I think sometimes families like, I'm just going to take the loan and I'll figure it out later. And I really try to work with families to think about, okay, no, are there other things that you can do to reduce that loan at the end?
I think those payment plans are a hidden gem. I really do. Figure out what you can use from savings or other assets you set aside. How much can you use? Can you put in a monthly payment plan to pay the expenses, and then determine if you need to borrow, what that strategy is. Kathy, when you're talking to families who do need to borrow and you're talking to them about sources for funding, where do you typically turn them?
So I actually first will start off with a payment plan because I love them. And I think it is an often overlooked resource. And the way I usually frame it is, your child will not be in your home anymore. So are you paying for lessons right now that you won't be paying for? Why don't you just shift those funds over to a payment plan if they're not going to be eating at home? And just a lot of things that you're in your budget now that you might be able to put over to a monthly payment plan, and it reduces debt. I love them. So that's my first go-to. Sometimes it's not feasible. And that's where we really need to get into a conversation with the families themselves to see, should it be the parent doing the borrowing? Should it be a parent and the student doing? So we look at federal sources like PLUS loans, parent loans for undergraduate students, federal student loans that the parent can take out on behalf of the student. We do look at, maybe there's another family member who's willing to do some borrowing. So we do have a list of what we call alternative or outside loans, where they're from private sources, private banks, maybe credit unions, that will help pay the bill for the student. And again, putting in a little payment plan in first before you look at that loan can really keep the debt down.
That's great. Karen, any additional pieces of advice?
No, I think those are all good points. I think so many families, and this is how we present financial aid to them, right? We send them an award letter that shows the full year cost of attendance, the full year expected contribution. And there is no time that we'll ever ask you to write a check for that amount. I think families feel like they have to have it all at once before they can start. And it's just not how things work, right? The expenses come up. Our school is quarterly, so 3 times a year are the big bills for tuition. It spreads things out nicely. And in that cost of attendance are things like personal expenses that the student may be earning in a work-study job when they're on campus, right? So that, you don't have to think about the whole thing. Look carefully at the direct costs, the ones that we bill you for. those are the ones that you're going to be asked to write a check for some portion of that amount. And you can ask the financial aid office to help you do that math of, okay, what's the first check I'm going to have to write? What does that look like? What are the bills going to look like?